Hello. I want to welcome you to this video that is for the Staff Pastor Parish Relations Committee. In this video, I'm going to talk briefly about some of the things that are important for you as a member of the Staff Pastor Parish Relations Committee, or the SPPR for short, which I'll use from now on. This committee is a committee that is sort of it's a difficult one at times to serve. At other times, it's quite rewarding. But it's difficult in that this committee is sort of the go-between. It's the committee that's caught in the middle, oftentimes between the pastor and his or her goals and desires and ambitions for the congregation, and the goals, desires, and ambitions of the congregation. Sometimes there is a conflict there. The pastor sees things headed in one direction, and the congregants see things headed in another direction. As members of the SPPR committee, your job is to be the listening ears. Your job is to help the pastor to understand what it is that the congregation is feeling, what it is that the congregation is hurting over, what it is that the congregation would hope the direction of the church might be. But at the same time, it flows the other way as well. It's your job to help the congregation to understand what the pastor feels called to do as the pastor of the church, the direction that the pastor might feel the church might need to go in. It's your job to help get the pastor's message out as much as it is to help the pastor to understand the message of the congregation. This is not always an easy task. Most of the time, however, it is an easy task. It is a joyful task, and it's an undertaking that can be done with very little pain. Oftentimes, the most difficult thing that comes up is those years that the pastors have to move, when you have to make that decision to either say to the pastor, we feel it's time for you to move on, or you hear those words from the pastor when he or she says, I feel it's time to move on. Those can be difficult years because of the transition that takes place. There are other things that the PPR committee does as well. You can think of yourself, when you listen to the title, Staff Pastor Parish Relations Committee. That first word, staff, is important. Not only do members of the PPR committee relate to the pastor and his ministry or her ministry, but they also relate to the staff that are employed by the church. It's the job of the PPR committee to, first of all, make those initial contacts with persons that might need to be hired. The PPR committee looks at the church and under the counsel of the pastor or under the guidance of the administrative board, look for those opportunities for ministry that might need to have a paid person on staff. And it's the PPR committee's job to develop a job description, to begin the process of looking for candidates, to interview candidates, to bring people on board, and to make those kinds of hiring decisions that are given to them by the discipline and the administrative board. Sometimes that's an easy process. Sometimes that's a difficult process. But nevertheless, it's a process that has to be undertaken at times. Now, there's a lot of input in that as well. Different groups within the church may be able to share what they feel they need. For instance, the choir. If you're looking for someone related to music, such as a pianist or a director, it would pay for the PPR committee to listen to what those folks say, because they will be the ones in the choir, that is, that have to work with that person that eventually is hired. And so the PPR committee then still becomes a go-between, a committee that is there moving between different factions, different groups, different interests within the congregation. Another role that the PPR committee plays is that of advocate for the pastor. The PPR committee sets salary recommendations. The PPR committee looks at parsonage guidelines. The PPR committee recommends vacation time. The PPR committee does all kinds of things in relation to the pastor and to the pastor's family. It's very important to remember that the PPR committee still relates to the family as much as it does to the pastor, and that is an important relationship to have. There are a lot of other things the PPR committee does, but I think you begin to see some of the big picture items in just the few words that I've said. One thing that you need to understand about being on the PPR committee is that it puts you in a position of knowing information about the pastor, information about persons within the congregation, information about relationships and maybe strained relationships between pastors and members of the congregation. Not everything flows smoothly. Not everything is always rosy, shall we say. Sometimes there's difficulties. Certain folks may not like what the pastor's doing. The pastor may have difficulty relating to certain members. The members of the PPR committee are there to help those kinds of relationships as well. But they're also there to keep a strict confidence. Because if the pastor needs to talk about someone within the congregation and seek guidance as the best way to help maybe work around a problem, then it is very important for the pastor to know that what is said in these PPR committee meetings stays in these PPR committee meetings. Because if it were to leak out that the pastor felt that there was an issue between the pastor and a congregant, that might just make the situation even worse. And so you're held to a strict level of confidence here. You're held to a level of advising that maybe you're not going to be comfortable with. That's what you've gotten yourself into when you said, I want to be a member, or I will be a member of the Staff Pastor Parish Relations Committee. I'll be giving other videos along the way, but I hope that you will learn from this one and understand what it means to be a member of this committee at some very basic levels. God bless, have a great day, and I look forward to working with you as a member of the Staff Pastor Parish Relations Committee.